Ancient Rome was a great empire, built largely on slavery. When we talk about slavery, we usually picture men engaged in hard labor. But how often do you think about female slaves, the women who were expected to do anything and everything for their masters? There isn't much historical information about female slaves, but I managed to find some fascinating details. I've gathered only the most interesting facts, so if you watch this video until the end, your understanding of the Roman Empire will change forever. The price of a female slave. Of course, a slave owner could put his female slave to work doing hard labor, but her main purpose was to serve and please her master. Not every Roman could afford such a luxury. The average price of a young and beautiful female slave was 1,000 denarii. If we convert that into modern terms, it would be approximately $20,000. But even that was not the limit. The most expensive female slave was sold for 6 times that price. After paying such a sum, a Roman master naturally wanted to enjoy his purchase to the fullest and get the maximum benefit from her. Interestingly, according to Roman law, a female slave was not considered a person. Because of this, whatever a Roman did to his slave was of no concern, even to his own wife. If a female slave had children, they were immediately born into slavery and had no right to freedom, joining the ranks of those who, under Roman law, were not even considered human. At this point, anyone with a business mindset might recognize a profitable scheme. For example, one Roman emperor had 20 female slaves, and they bore him over 30 children. That means he could have multiplied his investment if he had chosen to sell his concubine's children into slavery. And he would have been especially lucky if most of them were girls. But what happened to female slaves once they were no longer desirable? The fate of female slaves. If a Roman master died, his female slaves were usually of no interest to his wife. The wife could grant them freedom and even reward them generously for their services. This was one of the few ways a female slave could finally escape her suffering. However, this was not her only hope. If she managed to win her master's favor or even make him fall in love with her, she could live a comfortable life. A Roman man could grant her freedom and even marry her. But such cases were rare. More often, a Roman was only interested in recovering the money he had spent on his toy. One way to do this was to send her to the Roman baths, where she would serve not just one man, but many. Another option was to rent her out to a brothel, ensuring that his investment paid off. The role of brothels in Roman society. Romans who could not afford personal slaves frequented brothels instead. Visiting a brothel in ancient Rome was considered almost a duty, a way to release tension and, according to Romans, reduce crime rates, especially against free women. At one point, free Roman women even began to imitate the looks of brothel slaves. They started wearing sheer clothing and using makeup to attract attention. However, Roman society had strict moral norms. Free women were not allowed to behave as freely as slaves. Even for men, showing affection toward a woman was considered a sign of weakness. But in brothels, men could get whatever they wanted from their slaves. The power of female slaves. Female slaves in brothels eventually realized an interesting fact. Men without their armor and fine robes were not as powerful as they seemed. Slaves allowed men to indulge in fantasies and explore different roles. No matter how high-ranking a Roman man was, in private, a slave girl could have power over him. Archaeologists have even found gold jewelry engraved with messages of gratitude, likely given to slaves by their wealthy Roman masters. The darkest side of slavery. However, not all female slaves were so fortunate. Many were used as punching bags, brutally whipped, humiliated, and insulted. Some Romans even took sadistic pleasure in finding new ways to torture them. Torture was commonplace in ancient Rome. Romans believed that a slave could never tell the truth willingly, so they saw torture as the only way to extract confessions. Final thoughts. The lives of female slaves in ancient Rome were filled with cruelty, suffering, and oppression, but at the same time, some of them found ways to turn the system to their advantage. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out our other fascinating videos.